Hi, welcome to Cymru Goch. I'm Connor, and this channel is dedicated to expressing my views on politics, history, and philosophy. In regards to politics, I would describe myself as far left. Whilst I'm not a huge fan of giving myself specific labels, as I find them pretty restrictive, I would describe myself as a Welsh Republican, not one of those shitty American ones, an actual Republican, as well as some type of anarcho-socialist. I'm a very big fan of anarcho-syndicalism, generally, but I put a particular emphasis on the anarchist section of that. When I call myself a Welsh Republican, what I mean is I believe in the formation of an independent Wales without us being beholden to the British Crown. This is because I find the idea of a head of state being a head of state for no other reason than they are born into the correct family to be a completely repulsive one. But Connor, I hear you say, that doesn't explain why you want Wales to be a republic. To that I say, I don't trust Westminster to have Wales's best interests at heart, nor do I think they actually have any respect for Wales and Welsh culture. You only need to look at how Rishi Sunak refuses to use Bannau Brycheiniog instead of Brecon Beacons, or how the MOD mocked an injured soldier at an AFCS hearing for being Welsh. On top of this, after Brexit, Wales has lost millions in funding, despite Westminster's assurances that our funding would not change. We used to receive £375 million a year for investments off of the EU, but the UK government only gives Wales £46 million a year. This is a drop of over £330 million a year. And to put the cherry on top, the UK government blames the Senedd for spending on vanity projects, quote unquote, without actually saying what those projects were. All of this, and more, are my reasons for wanting an independent Wales. I can dive into those reasons in more detail in another video. As for why I'm an anarcho-socialist, I feel I should first explain a little about my personal life. Without going into too much detail, I grew up living paycheck to paycheck. My family was not very well off at all. I also have personally seen the effects of the profit-driven economy has had on people of my economic class, with many people I know having to work multiple jobs just to pay their bills and put food on the table. I blame profit incentives as if we removed that, companies would have no incentive to not increase their wages for workers. On the more theory-driven side, I believe a number of things. Any industries that can be nationalised should be. Anything that can't should be run through a worker democracy. Unions, at least under capitalist mode of production, are the only way for workers to not be abused by their higher-ups. I've personally witnessed the difference in treatment between unionised workers and non-unionised workers in regards to things like the way their managers treat them, what is said to them, how disciplinaries are treated, so on and so forth. I also believe that no individual has any more value in a workplace than any other. Each person simply fulfills a different role. This is not to say that those with more responsibility should not be paid more than those with less responsibility, quite the opposite actually. But each individual plays an important role and should be compensated adequately, even if that means those at the very top take a massive pay cut to achieve this. Ultimately, I believe the boss at the top should not be earning 30, 40 times, sometimes even more, the amount of money that the lowest worker earns. I also believe in maximising freedom for every individual, regardless of class, race, religion, or any other characteristic. This means I am a huge advocate for concepts such as freedom of speech, trans rights, religious freedoms, and all other similar concepts. No individual or institution should be able to dictate how another lives their life. That is not to say that there should be no limitations of what you can do. Someone is not allowed to say, assault a trans person simply for the fact that they are trans. Nor do I believe that you have the right to deliberately stir up hatred towards a group of individuals with the express purpose of causing them harm, whether that harm is done through physical violence or institutional regulations such as anti-trans or anti-union laws. Over time, there have been quite a number of people who have influenced me to think in the way I do think. Beyond the usual people, such as my parents, my brother and my friends, I've been influenced by many authors and public figures, including, but not completely limited to, Karl Marx, Eric Blair, or as he's more commonly known, George Orwell, Alan Moore, and Mick Lynch. Karl Marx is a pretty self-evident one. The man is arguably the most important modern philosopher we have, with the majority of philosophers either agreeing or attempting to debunk his ideas. Plus, it would take some kind of weird amount of mental gymnastics to be a socialist if I didn't at least agree with some of what Marx wrote. Eric Blair, to use his real name, George Orwell was just a pen name, wrote some of the most influential socialist fiction and non-fiction of the 20th century. Many people take books such as Animal Farm and 1984 to critique socialism and communism as ideologies, but that's really not the case. The amount of mental gymnastics you would have to do to fight in the Spanish Civil War on the side of the Partido Obrero de Unificación Marxista, or to give it its English name, the Party of Marxist Unification, and still be anti-socialist would quite frankly be insane. His works were, however, extremely critical and downright against Stalin and the USSR, which is something I can completely get behind. Alan Moore is simply one of my favourite authors. V for Vendetta is one of my favourite visual novels and films of all time, and it contains tons of anarchist messaging. It also helps that I'm a massive fan of The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and The Watchmen. Batman the Killing Joke is also another piece of work of his that's incredible. This interview with Alan Moore is also a huge reason I have a lot of respect for the guy.
Anarchy is, and always has been, a romance. It is clearly the best way and the only morally sensible way to run the world. That everybody should be the master of their own destiny. Everybody should be their own leader. This is something that I still believe. I think that even a cursory look around the world at the moment, particularly at the moment, would reveal that it is about 0.00001% of the world's population that causes 99.99999% of the world's problems. And that tiny percentage, it's not the Jewish banking conspiracy. It's not the asylum seekers. It's not the secret homosexual conspiracy running Hollywood. It's not even the Scientologists. It is leaders. That what we need is an administration, at most. We don't need people to boss us about.
And finally, we reach one of my favourite modern individuals, the RMT leader Mick Lynch. It wasn't until the rail strikes of May 2022 that I found out about Mick, but since then I've been a huge fan of his. Watching his speeches and public appearances helped me realise that there are actually still people in the UK that actually care for trade unions and realise the power they hold. Whilst the strikes have been an inconvenience, they have shown me that we as socialists and trade unionists can actually make a difference if we want to, and that there are still individuals that are willing to stand up against the establishment and, most importantly, the Tories. Hopefully, this has served as a good introduction to who I am and to what to expect in later videos on the channel. Before I end this video, I'm going to leave with one last belief of mine in the form of a song by a British band.
Fuck the Tories, fuck the Tories, fuck the Tories, fuck the Tories, 'cause we've had enough of them